I think the number that stands out from your earnings release last night, booked room nights down over 85% in April year over year. As you discuss or have discussions with your various brands from Priceline to Kayak, what are your expectations on how long it will take for travel to return to pre-COVID-19 levels?
Well, I think the right answer is nobody knows for sure, and we just have to make an estimate. But I think I'm fairly confident that this is not something that's going to come back in quarters. This is a recovery. A full recovery is going to take years. And I think no one's going to feel comfortable, fully comfortable traveling until they can feel that they are safe. And that requires either perhaps we'll have a vaccine, hopefully not too long from now, or an effective treatment would help too. Until that happens, I think people are going to be concerned about travel.
Yeah, last time we spoke, we discussed the importance of testing for the travel industry. What do you think it will take for a traveler to get back on a plane, visit family across the country? Will it be a vaccine? Is that the new passport to getting on a plane?
Well, I think it can be whatever it is that makes people feel safe, that they're getting on a plane and they're not going to catch a disease. And a vaccine would be the greatest thing, of course. Everybody feels that people don't worry about polio much in the United States because of an effective vaccine. Nobody's going to get polio. We need something like that, but an effective treatment could help too. If people didn't think, well, it's a bad illness, but the chance of me being seriously debilitated or even losing my life, if that's eliminated because there are effective treatments, that could work too. And of course, the thing that nobody wants to have to wait for is if herd immunity were to work, we're not sure yet, but that means that there is an endpoint at some point. Enough people will have been infected and recovered, and then there will be that ability to feel safer. We don't want to have to wait for that. We want that vaccine out as soon as possible.
Give us some color, Glenn, on what you're seeing in countries that have lifted lockdown measures from China, South Korea to Germany. And are those countries, in fact, a template for what we could see here?
Well, I think it's hard to know for sure. Different countries operate differently, but we certainly have seen some very small green shoots in countries like Germany, like Korea is a good example. But we've also seen things like in Singapore, where a very good system there. They've done a very good job of controlling the infections, but then they loosen things up and infections come back up and they put them back in. Same thing in Hong Kong a while ago. We have to be very careful with this because when you lift up these restrictions, you can have these flare-ups, and then the government needs to step in and reinstate these restrictions and bring everything back down. And that kind of wave recovery is going to be disconcerting to a lot of people.
Glenn, it's David Faber. You've obviously raised liquidity to try to get yourself through this difficult period. Do you feel like you're in a position where, however long it may be, you are going to be able to get to the other side in terms of where your liquidity is? And I know you've laid some people off at Kayak and Open Table. Are you done with the furloughs?
Well, first of all, we went out to the market and we did raise over $4 billion. And we feel very good about that, providing that liquidity that will enable us, even in the worst case scenarios, to get to that other side, as you pointed out. In terms of furloughs or layoffs, we are obviously looking at everything and what's the future size and shape of the company going to be. And what really depends on what do we think is going to be the rate of recovery in travel. And look, we see it all around the world. Travel is taking it the worst of any industry by far. And unfortunately, I believe that travel will be one of the last ones to get out because of those things I mentioned about people being concerned about doing it. We're going to have to make sure that the company is sized appropriately for the demand that's going to come forward. So we'll continue to look at that.
Glenn, do you believe even when we do get to a point of a vaccine or antivirals that allow people to feel more comfortable being out, do you believe that behaviors in the hotels, at the airlines will change or actions will have to change that will add costs over a long period of time?
There could be some costs, particularly in the beginning. You've heard of airlines that are talking about perhaps not having middle seats for some time, and that would be even after vaccine. They may want to do that just to make people feel safe. Because it's going to take some time for a vaccine to be distributed to enough people to establish, the immunity that we need in society. So that could cost, and there could be other measures taken. I think some of the costs will be relatively low. They'll be put in. There'll be fever checks before in the airports, even before there's a vaccine. We're going to start putting that in. That may go on afterwards. And there could be other things that we'll be able to put together to make people feel more comfortable that the cleaning is done at a different level in a hotel than it's done ends up more costly, but it is something that makes people feel more comfortable that they're willing to go somewhere.
Glenn, it's Sarah. We got a pretty ugly report on our jobs market on April this morning. And of the 20.5 million jobs lost, 7.7 million of them were in travel, leisure, and hospitality, 47% of total positions there. How are you thinking about how many of those jobs can come back, if at all?
Yeah. And, it's tragic. It really is. It's so hard on so many people when things like this happen. And out of the blue, really, no one saw any warning of this. But also, nobody really knows when are we going to start getting that demand to come back. Certainly, the amount of employment in the travel industry is just completely correlated to the amount of demand. And it's very flexible. And companies that are very large that have to hire a lot of people, they'll be able to bring back people quickly once demand starts to pick up again. And again, as I stated, unfortunately, we don't see the full recovery for some time. So it's going to take some time for these people to come back. And the saddest thing is so many of these jobs are for people at entry levels who are really just joining the workforce at very low levels and work their way up. And if those entry-level jobs aren't there, that creates a huge problem. And that's why we need the governments to step up and help provide assistance and support, not just what has been done already, which I am so thankful for. I am so happy that the governments have done that. I think the President and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and Senator Schumer and Speaker Pelosi have done a great job about what they've done in the past of getting this thing to where we are. But we need to do more. We need to provide the funds that are necessary to help prime the pump, so when the demand starts to come back a little bit, that the government will feel safer, that they'll travel. We need the government to help put together programs that will help bring back that what I'd say is one of the greatest industries in the world. It's something that everybody loves, and we need to help support it.